Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Georgia Center for the Book. My name is Bill Starr. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for the Book. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, let me tell you very briefly who we are and what we do. We're hosted first by the DeKalb County Public Library, which means although we are a statewide institution, it is a county institution which pays our bills. So we're grateful to DeKalb County for undertaking that responsibility. Now, the center represents the National Center for the Book based at the Library of Congress. There is a Center for the Book in all of the 50 states, and in each of those states, we represent the work and the mission of the Library of Congress. Our mission is threefold. It is the support of libraries, the support of good literature, and the support of literacy programs such as what's brought us here today, Letters About Literature, and another of our special competitions, which is called River of Words, which is an environmental poetry and visual arts competition. We'll be giving awards in that tomorrow. The Letters About Literature competition is sponsored by the National Center for the Book at the Library of Congress, by the individual state centers who participate, and also by the Target Corporation. And we thank Target for their support. And our winners today, our first place winners, have a special Target gift card coming to them. Target funds this program, and we're most grateful for that. Now, this ceremony is not a long one, but it's a very important one because we are recognizing some extraordinarily gifted young writers all around the state of Georgia today. And to talk to those writers particularly, now we're glad you parents and teachers and friends are here, but our special guest today is really aiming his remarks at our student writers. And you are writers, you are colleagues of this gentleman. And his name is Jack Riggs. He is the author of this novel published a couple of years ago called When the Finch Rises. It won critical acclaim all over the country. It's gone into a paperback printing. And Jack teaches at Georgia Perimeter College and is director of the Creative Writing Institute at Georgia Perimeter. He is one of Georgia's fine writers, and we are delighted to have him here today to talk to his fellow writers just a little bit. So, Jack, please welcome Jack Riggs.
Thank you, Bill. It's always an honor to be asked to speak to young writers here today. It's really an honor. I mean, it's sort of an honor. I'm going to tell you I'm a little upset. I'm a little upset about all this. Actually, to be honest with you, I'm really upset. I got one thing I need to know. Bill, you can tell me, maybe Joe or teachers or parents out there, someone might be able to tell me just why no one wrote me a letter. I'm an author. I'm an alive author. Now, most of you probably wrote about dead authors. You know, you probably wrote about somebody like Louisa May Alcott, or maybe John Steinbeck or Hemingway or that crazy woman Sylvia Plath. You could have written about any of those, but you know what? They're dead. And I bet you they didn't even write you back. I would have written you back. I would have told you how great of a writer you're going to be and how you're already there. I'd have said anything you wanted me to say to you to make you keep writing. But you didn't write me a letter. Now, I don't know when it was. Maybe in late March or early April, I started wondering why Bill hadn't called me to speak to you today. Usually by that time, he's called, and I've put him off a little bit. I've told him I've got to check my busy calendar because I'm a live writer, and I'm really busy doing things like talking to people about how to write and how to get published and doing all those great things like that. You know, I am very busy. People do write me letters on, maybe they're emails that they write and not really letters, and maybe they're junk mail, but I still answer them. because I think it's important to do that. But you see, he hadn't, and even Joe, his assistant, Joe Davich, hadn't sent me anything or called me. And I guess you know that Bill was out of the country. Bill's been in Scotland researching a book. 3 months away from his family, away from his work, in Scotland, researching a book. Right. We can probably find pictures of that on YouTube. But anyway, I know that when he got back, I gave him a call. And I wanted to ask him how his trip was to Scotland, and he told me it was really good, that he worked really hard. And then I wanted to ask him if there was anything special that he wanted to tell me. And there was a pause, and he said, "What? No, Jack, there's nothing special I want to tell you." I got a little concerned that I was maybe a little presumptuous, thinking that somebody might have written me a letter. Maybe I was presumptuous to think that. But I asked. And he said, "No. Nobody wrote me a letter." So I'm peeved today. I'm a little upset about it. I mean, my swimming pool opened today, and my whole family's down there. I bought a brand new Speedo so I could be there right now in the sun, playing with my kids, or maybe responding to some of those emails that people have written to me. But here I am in the basement of a public library of all places. And then I realized, well, if I'm here, maybe I should write myself a letter and read my letter to you all. So that's what I did. I wrote me a letter, and since you are here today and didn't write me one, you get to hear it. Dear me, where's your second book? Why is it taking so long? Why are you writing this letter when you should be extolling the virtues of those who are here today celebrating their success as writers at such a young age? Why do you worry about what Bill did in Scotland when you should be worrying about Peck and Cassie, your new characters in that book you haven't finished yet? These are all good questions you ask yourself, but shouldn't you be thinking of others today? These wonderful young writers who, with the strong support of family and schools, have already begun to capture the control of language, that magical moment when thought and word become one, and the hard task of writing with coherence and confidence finally succeeds. I would think you might want to congratulate them for doing something so many of their peers are afraid to attempt, or are maybe just too bored by the idea that thought actually can amount to something. That these kids in front of you right now have attempted to think and then to communicate this thought in the form of cogent and well-written letters should make you want to jump up and down and shout, "Hallelujah! There's still a chance for us all." You should look at each parent and tell them to be proud of their child. That this recognition should stand right up there with any most valuable athlete award or recognition for community service. Because what they have done is extraordinary in society today. In this age of immediate gratification and consumerism, in a time when to sit still and think is roundly ignored, they have gone against the tide. They have sat still and they have thought. Then they have put thought into word. In other words, they have become writers. You should tell each parent now to go out and buy something big and expensive for each one of these young authors today. Because if we don't start recognizing and celebrating intellectual accomplishments in the same way we celebrate celebrity and fame, then what on earth is going to happen to us as an enlightened society? I paid him to do that. Where will our next Hemingway or Flannery O'Connor or John Updike or, dare I say, the next Jack Riggs come from? This I know for certain. You, Jack Riggs, must go home and write. Put that Speedo in the trash can and don't ever buy something like that again. My goodness, you're too old for that kind of exposure. But before you go, look out into that sea of eyes, young minds fidgeting impatiently, older ones fogging over a little, maybe a bit tired, but there beside the young ones, beaming for what their offspring has accomplished. Look out into that sea of eyes and say, you are on your way. You are a step above the rest. You have discovered very young that thought and word are important. Now tell them one more thing today. Tell them that the stewardship of that union of thought and word is vital if we are to be an enlightened society. All those young minds out there before you need to know it will be up to them to bring compassion back to the public discourse, civility back to the public square. It's simple, really, Jack. Just tell them to have a heart to feel, the curiosity to know, and the will to believe. But remind them mostly of the heart. I'm not sure we do enough of that today. The heart is where creativity finds the spark. It is where all good things in life begin. Tell them that, Jack, and I am sure that they will excuse you for all of the rest that you have said today. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Jack. Jack will be here after the program, and if you would like to talk with him a little bit, we encourage you to do so. Jack, we're most grateful to you for making this talk to your fellow writers. Thank you very much. Now to the special fun part, where we get to recognize students who have taken part in this competition. Let me give you a couple of numbers first. All over the country, because Letters About Literature is a national competition, about 56,000 students all over the country took part this year. In Georgia, we had about 1,000. And since Letters About Literature began, in the state of Georgia, we've had almost 10,000 students who have taken part in the competition. And from that number, a very, very small number have been declared winners. It is, in our view, quite an honor to take part in this and to be judged against your fellow writers in the state of Georgia. And we have some students, I believe, who are here today who entered this competition who are not award winners at this program. And I'm not talking about honorable mentions or first, second, or thirds, but I think there are some other students who are here who simply took part in the competition. Now, would they stand for just a moment? If you would. Please acknowledge them. Thank you very much. We're delighted and honored that you came to be with us today. We thank you for taking part in this essay competition, and I hope that it has been a benefit to you. Your letters were outstanding, and we thank you. Now, in this competition, we have never before had any honorable mentions. This is the first. This is the first time that the judges in this competition in the state felt that there were letters of such high quality that they deserved to be given special mention, although they were not the winners. And we have two of our three honorable mentions. As I say, the first time this has ever happened in the state of Georgia. Luke Putney and Dee Dee Seaman. And would you two stand, please? Dee Dee's over here and Luke here. Congratulations. Luke, Dee Dee, we're very proud of you, and you should be proud. Parents, you did well. Mohini Chakravorty is also a winner, could not be here with us this afternoon. Now, I want to tell you something that's a little bit different for this year also. For the first time, the Georgia Center for the Book has compiled a book with all of the winning letters in it. And that book is being printed now and will be made available to our winners shortly, in the next few weeks, I hope, and it will be mailed to you. Libraries and schools will also be given copies of this book. As I say, it's a first for us, and it will put in printed form your letters. You will also find the winning letters and a little bit of information about letters, about literature, at the website, which is www.georgiacenterforthebook.org. And yes, you do have to write that entire thing out. It's georgiacenterforthebook.org. And once you do that, if you will click on Letters About Literature, you will find information about this program and the winning letters reprinted there. Now, we're going to ask our third place winners if they would come up one at a time and to read their winning letters to you. There are 3 levels in Letters About Literature competition. Level 1 is students in grades 4 through 6, level 2, grades 7 and 8, and level 3, grades 9 through 12. So, Poolia Meyer, if you would come up from the Walker School, and we would like to present you with an award and to hear your letter. Please congratulate her. There is your gift certificate. And
Dear Mother Teresa, your poem, Anyway, was very heartwarming. A few days ago, my dad gave me this poem to read. I think that this might keep me happy a little more. The first line reads, people are often illogical and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. A lot of people have talked about me, hurt me, and sometimes even hit me or punched me, but I learned to forgive them and be nice to them anyway. And guess what? After many times of them being mean to me and me being nice, they stopped. Some people are still illogical and don't use their heads on purpose, which frustrates me, but I still forgive them, and soon they might stop too. The next line is, if you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. I am very fast in swimming, and one of the girls in my year-round practice gets very jealous if I go fast. Sometimes she pushes me off instead of the wall. Sometimes she makes up lies, and like I kicked her face when we were swimming, just to make the coach angry. Then he made me do 200 push-ups. Even after many lies she told about me, I still continued to succeed. Another line in the poem that relates to me is, the good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. This has happened to me a lot. I do a lot of good things, and everyone forgot them. Once I did something extremely good and waited the next day for people to say something about it. No one mentioned it, not once. I have been nice and kind and helped many people, and they act like they don't care and forget. I have still kept doing it and will keep on helping others, because I know that it is the right thing to do. My favorite is the last line in the poem. You see, in the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. The sentence kind of tells you that it doesn't matter what others think of you or do to you. It is between you and God. He's the one that cares about you, and and He's the one that you should think about. Thank you, Mother Teresa, for showing me the right way. Sincerely, Pooja Meyer.
I should have told you that you already figured it out. Her letter was written to Mother Teresa. And our third place winners, by the way, receive a $50 United States savings bond. Now, Ning Lu, where are you? Would you come forward, please? She is written to the author, Annie Dalton.
Dear Miss Annie Dalton, you have no idea how much I enjoyed your book, Isabel Taking Wing. I loved how well I could connect with the main character, Isabel. It was as if I had been magically transformed into Isabel within the blink of an eye whenever I cracked open the book. I felt like I was among the cheerful, boisterous action during the entire volume instead of sitting at my desk and reading words on a page by the cozy light of my Tickle Me Pink lamp. Reading Isabel Taking Wing was tremendous fun for me, especially since it was set in the 1500s in England, a time of great progress and interest in learning the arts. When I first read about Isabel taking her magical journey on the boat she and Meg had stolen, I immediately thought of my own cherished moments during the first time I went to Disney World when I was 9 years old while I was on the Matt Tea Party ride. At the time of the ride, it had been early evening, just like during Isabel's outing, and all the different rides' vivid neon lights were blinking and twinkling cheerfully. I remembered how overjoyed I'd been on that madly swirling escapade, happily giggling this huge, oversized teacups and wanting to spin faster and faster and away into that blissful night and never have to come back again to meet the light of day and encounter new arising troubles. I think that's how Isabel must have felt during her thrilling journey, freed and relieved from all the copious troubles she normally would have to face. Before the trip, Isabel might have felt cooped up and nearly smothered to death by all of Aunt Eleanor's strict expectations and her new responsibilities. However, during our separate enchanting journeys, we were both released like butterflies being set free, if only for a few precious moments, to soar through the limitless sky beyond the boundaries of our daily lives. Besides the book's joyful moments, I also immensely savored the bittersweet parts, such as the profoundly reflective conclusion in the last few chapters. The fact that Meg had passed away hit me cold and hard, like a severe punch to the stomach in slow motion, as it finally dawned upon me that Meg, that sweet, cheery, bright-eyed child, had truly passed on. It was like feeling the loss of a best friend all over again. You see, in 4th grade, a very special friend had to move away to Florida. I still remember driving away from her house after a get-together for what I then thought was the very last time, yelling, "Thanks for all the memories. Keep in touch." I remember she was waving goodbye from her doorsteps and trying desperately not to break down and cry, while I was faced with the same mission as I waved back from my place in the back seat. I remember seeing her image getting smaller and smaller as our car drove farther and farther away from her house. Fortunately, unlike Isabel's friendship with Meg, my story has a happy ending. I am pleased to say that after about 1 year in Florida, my best friend decided to move back to Georgia. However, I can still relate to Isabel's emotions, the grief, the sorrow, the hours spent in bed lying awake, remembering all the good times we've had together, but knowing you must move on. Isabel might have been a fictional character, but there must have been a girl very similar to her that actually lived during the same time period. Knowing and reflecting on this gives me a sense of great upwelling joy that brings a smile to my face. Even though we are different girls in dissimilar time periods dwelling in diverse continents, we still feel the same sensations of friendship and jubilance, loss and hopelessness, and happiness and contentment. Sincerely yours, Ning Lo.
Is Mark Haddad here? I didn't see his sign in. Mark's from Lakeside High School. He is not here, but we thank him and congratulate him. He will be sent his $50 U.S. savings bond. We will move to our second place readings. And I would first ask Jamie Hellier, if you would please come up. Jamie, that's $75 savings bond. And would you like a copy of your letter? Would that be? Jamie has written to author Lisi Harrison, and she and all our second place winners receive a $75 United States savings bond.
Okay. Dear Lisi Harrison, last year I read a book that changed my life. I read your first cookbook. It was at a time when I needed it most. My best friends had suddenly become popular and left me in the dust. I was dealing with the stress of changing schools, and I took everything in my life for granted. I never really stopped to think about the other friends I had or the love that my family gave me. It was probably about June when I read the first click book. I was so mad and ready for a change. One of my friends was reading the book. I read the book and exclaimed, "This book is trash. Who in their right minds would want to read a book about backstabbing mean girls who gossip and spread rumors?" "Jamie, calm down. It's not a bad book, I promise you," was her response. One night, I went to the bookstore. I was looking for a book to read on the long journey from our home in Atlanta to our beach house in Connecticut, so I went into the teen section. As my eyes wandered, I caught sight of the Click series. As I read the back of the first book one last time, with my friend's words running through my head, I reluctantly decided to read it. That night, I read the whole first half of the book. I had to admit it was a good book. I woke up early the next morning to finish the book. And so my journey with the Click books began. I stood in vicious Mashy's shoes, beckoning commands, and wandered around with Claire and her kids. I experienced the moments with Alicia, mean Kristen, and struggling Dylan. With the Click books, I was a little kid with 50 pounds of candy. I couldn't get enough. I spent the foggy mornings and hazy days sitting in a rocking chair as I looked out onto the ocean. I spent cozy nights by the fireside inhaling the words. I felt like I could relate the Click books to my life, and that's when I started to change. And so I say thank you. I say thank you to the Click books, the Bitter Girls, Quiet Claire. Thank you for teaching me a lesson. Although you might not realize it, the Click books have made a difference in my life, and I say thank you. Sincerely, Jamie Hellier.
Andrew Thurman. Andrew Thurman cannot be here, but we congratulate him. His letter was written to Madeline L'Engle, author of A Wrinkle in Time. Evan Dixon. I know Evan is here. Congratulations to you. His letter has been written to an author. Maybe I should identify her because a lot of people wouldn't know her. Her name is J.K. Rowling.
Dear Ms. Rowling, it has been said by the late historian and politician James Bryce that the worth of a book is to be measured by what you can carry away from it. I have been an avid reader since I was about 7 or 8. I read everything I could get my hands on, particularly fantasy. I read Lord of the Rings, a few of the books in the Wheel of Time series, and most of the Redwall books, among others. But I cannot say that any of them compared to your series, Harry Potter. In Harry's world, I discovered a world quite like our own, a world that put into perspective for me many obvious but overlooked truths about adversity, good and evil, and perseverance. I can honestly say that I carried many things away with me from reading your books. I still remember the day that I came home from the library with Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It was rainy and rather dreary outside. I sat down, and in less than 2 hours I had finished the book. I could not put it down. With each page came more and more surprises. But even better, there was within the story a confused young man who was merely trying to understand his destiny in life as the unlikely hero who defeated a tyrannical wizard. To be honest, I see a lot of myself in Harry, especially now. I see within Harry the same struggles against evil, the same overwhelming feelings of anxiousness and fear, and the same tendencies to act on one's impulses rather than on the well-meaning voices of friends and superiors that surround us. I love how you develop each character by developing virtues and flaws, personality traits, and even idiosyncrasies in your quest to make each personage come to life for the reader. I truly have never come across another Professor Umbridge whom I loathe and want to see sacked, nor have I ever loved a literary character more than Albus Dumbledore. I found myself being transformed from a reader to a bystander who sees everything, who cries and laughs and screams along with Harry in his rather hectic life, to put it lightly. But most importantly, as I said before, I have especially learned from your books some of the most important lessons of life. I have discovered that our everyday experiences are laced with adversity and hardship. Suffering is an unavoidable component in life. I really did not understand this as clearly before I read your series, but now I can say that I am the wiser when it comes to the tribulations of life. Secondly, I have seen clearly that good and evil are not always absolute, or to put it more eloquently, that even the greatest of heroes have flaws and weaknesses. Having grown up watching cartoons and playing computer games where the perfect protagonist always wins, I found myself in an entirely different sphere of thinking with your characters, where evil can and often does mingle with good. Lastly, I have realized that no matter what happens, no matter how dark the path may seem to be, we must continue to persevere in life in order to reach our goals. There are many times in Harry's journey where there has been only darkness, but still he has endured despite his confusion and fear. This unwavering virtue has inspired me in my own struggles and has shown me a brighter way of thinking than before. In conclusion, Miss Rowling, your books have done more than any other piece of fictitious literature to shape my thinking and reveal to me the realistic state of this world in which I live. I have found in the fictitious person of Harry Potter a young man whom I can identify with, a young man who shares my struggles, fears, and desires. Thank you for what you have done through your books. And please do me a favor. In presenting life realistically as you do, don't kill Harry off in the 7th book. Sincerely, Evan Dixon.
As someone whose life is spent dealing with books, I feel constrained to add just a short comment to Evan's fine letter to Rowling. What a pity it is that there are some who don't want their children to read the Harry Potter series. And I listen to that letter and see what extraordinary life lessons this young man has absorbed from the book and think, this is a book that kids should be reading. And now to our level 1 winners, and I'm going to switch the order here just a little bit, and I'll tell you why a little bit later. I first would like to ask Linda Fong to please come up and to read her letter. Come up, Linda. This is for you. All of our first place winners receive not only a $100 United States savings bond, but a special gift card from the Target Corporation and a letter signed from the National Center for the Book acknowledging your award. So thank you very much. We look forward to hearing your letter.
Dear Kate Chopin, as I turned the pages of Miss Pontellier's Transformation, it was as if I was turning the pages of my own soul. I found my heart and mind awakening and realizing the full potential of life as I related to Edna's struggle for self. Fighting for freedom, looking for love, searching for strength, Edna revealed the truth of empowerment for women. Your novel, The Awakening, allowed me to identify my own persona, not only as an adolescent who is encountering love and seeking inner strength, but also as a woman. Miss Pontellier taught me to find myself, to identify my inner strengths, and to determine my desires. Along with defining who I am, I have learned as well to never sacrifice myself. Just as Edna stated, I would give up the unessential. I would give my money. I would give my life for my children, but I wouldn't give myself. We spend our lifelong journey discovering our passion and evaluating the essence of our souls. Once we find who we are, it is necessary to retain that sense of self. As much as we can give, our life, our love, we can never give up our identity. Edna went as far as showing me that true love, even in the most twisted ways, is still possible and always wonderful. The delicate descriptions that you have painted emulate a spectrum of different emotions. The pang of jealousy, the thrill of love, the sensuous kisses, and the bittersweet goodbyes have created a sense of underlying comprehension. The sweet satisfaction of tender romance has surged like waves within my own heart. As Edna experiences the captured moments of love and infatuation, I have too begun to blossom in my own stage of adolescence. The greatest lesson I have found within The Awakening is that of female empowerment. Women, like Edna, need only inner strength to overcome the standards of society. Today is an age where women are taking greater strides in education and in the workforce. Edna casts away the subordinate role of life, finding that she is a woman who can live on her own and who can take care of herself. While many detest the ending of your great novel, I find such a finale only fitting. Her swimming represents how much she has grown and indicates to me how much I have grown as well. As I swim alongside Edna to the final stroke, I realize that I am not as fearful of the waves as I was on Edna's first journey from the shore. The waves do not wear upon my heart and soul as greatly as they did that first time. I am the brave soul, the soul that dares and defies. I do not fear death, for I have come to understand my sense of self, the greatest gift life has to offer. I am stronger, I am wiser, and I can face the world on my own terms. Sincerely, Linda Fong.
Aren't these marvelous letters? I mean, this is wonderful writing by students who have absorbed so much. Sang Ho Chun, would you come up, please? We have for you a $100 savings bond, a Target gift card, and a certificate from the National Center for the Book. Congratulations. And would you read your letter for us, please? This is a letter to Mary Shelley.
Up until recently, I viewed the world in what might be considered an unusual way. Nothing but a desperate competition with no rules to put yourself at the top. I used to think that the only point in life is to get rich and have more power than anybody else, and the only way to do that is by cheating your way through life. For the most part, I still think that that's exactly what it is for most people. But when I read your novel, Frankenstein, I realized that it doesn't have to be for me, and I was so glad. The Lives of Frankenstein and the monster describe the world perfectly. When Frankenstein worked endlessly to create the monster, he practically gave up his life for his work. By the time he was done, he was in a terrible condition. That made me think that for me to be able to succeed in life, I'll just have to work as hard and turn to the bitter man Frankenstein had become. But when he runs away and gets to spend more time with his family, he was slowly restored to a happy man even without the success of his work. That made me realize something. I don't need to be at the top of the world. Then, when I was reading about the monster's life, it kind of hit me on the head. The monster had a lot more power than anybody else and could have easily lived whatever type of life it wanted to through force. But instead, it wanted to be accepted by the society and live loved by the people for his kindness. That told me I'll be happier living a simple life with the meaningful things like my family than at the top by myself. I might as well be on the bottom if I'm by myself. Now, when I view the world, I don't just see a cruel place where people fight with each other to be better than all the others. I see a place where you can live alongside your loved ones and be happy until your death. So, thank you for returning my sight to the better things in life and raising my hopes for this world. Thankfully, Sang Ho Chun.
I do want to recognize one more person before we have our last letter read. Another member of the Georgia Center for the Book Advisory Council who is here now, Lamar Veach, who is the head of the Georgia Public Library System. Lamar, would you stand up and be recognized, please? Glad to have you here. Now, Katja Martin, would you come up, please? For a moment. Now, there is something special about Katja that I must tell you about now. I mentioned earlier in the program that there have been about 56,000 entries in the Letters About Literature competition this year nationally. And of that 56,000, 6 letters were judged as national winners. Only 6 of 56,000. This is one of the 6. Now, you do get what the others get, a $100 gift certificate, a Target gift card, and a certificate. But she's also going to receive a little bit more than that. She has received a letter from John Cole, who is director of the Center for the Book at the Library of Congress, inviting her and her parents for an expense-paid trip to Washington, D.C. at the end of September. She will be reading her letter at the National Book Festival. It's a great honor, and we congratulate you for that. So I think the next step is to ask Katja if she would read her winning letter for you, please.
Dear Robert Frost, I used to live in a world where every winter there was the assurance of snow. I would sit in the woods across from my house with my dog, watching them fill up with snow. I would watch as the snowflakes gracefully danced through the frozen sky, slowly descending upon the earth. Everything has changed. I moved from Delaware to Georgia, from the north to the south. Now I live in a world where every year the temperature drops and winter arrives, but there is no chance of snow. No white blanket is dropped over the landscape to cover the leaves of fall, just the hard biting wind, the work, with no reward. Your poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, is all I have left to bring back the feeling of tranquility and simplicity. I had thought the feeling could only be triggered by being surrounded by a world of white. Your poem is my winter. It's my snow in a small collection of words. Sincerely, Katja Martin.
Thank you. Stay up here with you for just a moment. If you had any problem at all hearing that, we'll have a copy of the letter outside. Do take a look at it. It's quite marvelous and it's well done. Before I let you go back down, I want to read to everyone very briefly here what the national judges said of this letter. This was the comment that was written by Susan Burke, who is editor-in-chief of Simon & Schuster Publishers in New York City. I found the letter written by Katja to be the most personal of all I read. It was evocative and touching, and most importantly, it felt authentic and unique. Katja understood Frost's poem and then was able to apply his words to her own life in a very mature manner. And finally, the National Director of Letters About Literature, Kathy Gourley, wrote this. Katja's letter reads like poetry to me, which is, of course, fitting since she's writing to one of America's greatest poets. Her use of alliteration and metaphor is impressive. Her description of winter in Georgia as just the hard, biting wind, the work with no reward, is powerful. Don't be fooled by the shortness of her letter. The words she chooses so carefully have layers of meaning without being showy or flowery. Again, one of 56,000, and one of only 6 that's so honored. We congratulate you. We thank all of you for coming today. You should be very proud, every one of your students who took part in this competition, and we are proud of you. And as Jack Riggs said in his remarks, Mom and Dad, go out and buy them something very expensive today. But before you do that, please step outside and enjoy some refreshments and meet your fellow writers.